And thank you all for joining us. Welcome back, fellow colleagues. It's good to get started, and we are, I'm going to go over just, so we're going to do some introductions, and I wanted start with staff and support, and then we'll go to each of the representatives, and I'll go last, and if you just maybe share, representative, if you just share which district you represent and maybe which school districts that you represent in your district. And so maybe start with our great committee assistant. Rose, would you introduce yourself? Because I know you love to do it. We'll let you go first.
Excited for being here.
Now you got to say it again because it wasn't on.
Well, I'm the committee assistant, and I'm enjoying being here.
Hello, my name is Devin Barger, and I'll be your broadcasting tech for this session.
Thank you. Glad to have you.
I am Tamara Lawrence with the Office of Reviser of Statutes.
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Nick Myers with the Office of Reviser of Statutes, and I've had the pleasure of assisting with education issues my whole 13 sessions now. So,
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jennifer Light. I'm the Senior Fiscal Analyst with KLRD. This is my third session as the Education Fiscal Analyst, my fourth with the committee, and I am still the youngest of your staff on this committee as far as timing for how long we've been in education. I'm not going to speak to ages, but as for time in education, I am still the youngest person on the staff.
Matthew Willis, Principal Research Analyst, KLRD. This is my sixth session, all of which have had education.
Excellent. Thank you all for all of your support. And committee, these amazing ladies and gentlemen are here to help us, make wise choices, understand what we're looking at in budgets and on bills that we hear. So utilize them. They want you to. They enjoy their job. And thank you so much for serving us. Really appreciate it. And then we'll start with Representative McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Nikki McDonald. I serve portions of Olathe and Overland Park and the Olathe and Blue Valley school districts.
Representative Tim Johnson, this is my sixth year on the committee. I'm over in the 38th with Baser Linwood, one house in Bonner Springs, part of Piper, and a little bit of Leavenworth.
Greg Wilson from Dickinson County, representative of the 70th District, and we have Abilene, Chapman, Solomon, and then we have Marion, part of Marion, in Marion County.
Hello, I'm Representative Megan Steele. I have District 51, which has a little bit of the Manhattan School District, all of Wamego, and then Wabaunsee County that has Alma, and then Mission Valley.
Hello, I'm Representative Dr. Sherry Brantley from Great Bend. I have the 112th District. I have Otis Bison, Hoisington, Claflin, part of Ellenwood, and Great Bend.
And now we'll jump back over to Representative Swertferger since he came in late. He gets called out. Would you introduce yourself, tell us which district you're from, and how many school districts that you represent, if you can remember?
Wow, that's tough. I think 6 school districts is what I recall. I'm from the 114th District, Kingman, Reno, and Pratt County, and I'm happy to serve there.
And then we'll work our way back this way. Representative Poskin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Mary Lynn Poskin, Kansas House District 20. Is this louder than anybody else's has been so far? Okay, I represent Leawood and Overland Park, Blue Valley School District, and Shawnee Mission School District. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Representative Kyle McNorton, and I don't think I'm quite as big a mouth or loud as or anything. Anyways, I'm from District 50, which is northern Shawnee County. I got half of District 321, which is Rossville, and then Silver Lake and Seaman school districts.
I'm Rebecca Schmoy, and I have District 59, so most of Franklin County. And so that gives me Central Heights, Ottawa, and West Franklin.
I'm Representative Susan Estes, and my district is physically all within in Wichita, but I have mostly Wichita and some Andover.
Jared Owsley, represent House District 24, Merriam, Kansas, and USD 512.
I'm Linda Featherston from the 16th District in Overland Park, but I'm really here subbing in for Dr. Valdenia Wynn, who represents Kansas City, Kansas Public School Districts.
And we're going to have a card here tomorrow for Valdenia that we can all sign with her husband. I don't know what all is going on, but I know she's with him, and we can support her from a distance. But I am Representative Jason Getz, and I have the honor of chairing K-12 Budget Committee, and I appreciate working with all of you. My district is the 119th, which is just Dodge City. I'm one of the lucky Western Kansas reps that just has a city instead of several counties and several different. And so my school district is just USD 443. One of the, I think it's last year, it was the 5th largest high school and the 5th largest school district. So it's quite a few students, and it's fun to represent them. So shout out to my alma mater in 443. And then just a little bit of housekeeping on dates, but then also just reminding us what we're here for. I heard this quote. I would like for us to be a good example as a committee to our school districts and our education system. I always want us to do that. And the example that I would like for us to set is respectfully rational, to where we can be critical of ideas, but we can also do that in a very respectful way. And I think we did a good job of that this last year and came to some good consensus on education budget policy, and very proud of us, want to continue that work. So respectfully rational. We'll try and come back to that. And if there's, ever a time where somebody isn't being respectfully rational, I may just kind of toss that phrase out there and say, okay, let's steer the ship back in this direction, because we all fall short. But I think we have some brilliant people at this table, and we're open to correction, all of us. So with that, the quote around this that I really liked: true measure of a legislator is not how many laws they pass, but how well they preserve the conditions for human flourishing. So in here, the human flourishing that we're really looking at is students, parents, and educators, administrators, teachers, paras, special educators. And so our decisions have an impact, and let's just be mindful that we're guiding towards human flourishing and make our decisions from that. So thank you. Here's the housekeeping part as far as the new budget process being earlier. And this year, I feel like we have a really good time frame. We are going to have the hearing on the School for the Blind budget today, and then tomorrow, Kansas State School for the Deaf. And then on Thursday, we plan on, if there's not any major complications and we need some more information around those, to have a vote out of that on Thursday this week. Their budgets are in good shape, and we have some decisions to make, but we'll hear those the next 2 days, and then make some decisions around them if we're ready to on Thursday. But the plan is to do that this Thursday. Then the next 2 weeks, we will spend on KSDE's budget and all the supporting information that we need around that. But the dates for reporting to appropriations, those are just important for this committee to know. January 28th is when we report to appropriations for School of the Deaf, School of the Blind. And the 2nd or the 12th of February is when we report to appropriations for the K-12 budget. So just wanted everybody to be aware of those dates, 28th of January and the 12th of February are the two report out dates. So if we have our work done before that, which we will be well ahead of that with the schedule that we have, but also give it plenty of time to make good decisions. So, and then with that, we had a chairs meeting over the weekend on Sunday, and the speaker really wanted us to emphasize COMA, Kansas Open Meetings Act, and for this committee and for all committees, really wanted us to pay attention to that reply all button in our emails and to stay away from that one. And it can get us into some sticky situations. And so we just want to be mindful, and I wanted to give just kind of an open reminder of that reply all button it's a pretty sacred button. I wish we could kind of take it off. But let's just be mindful to not hit reply all to very many things in our emails. So with that, we have the Kansas School for the Blind here today, and to open us up and go through our new budget is KLRD and Jennifer Light. So Jennifer, join us. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Again, my name is Jennifer Light. Last year, Amanda was here with us doing the School for the Blind and the School for the Deaf budgets. She is still with KLRD. She just is now lead staff for social services budget. She took over the KDHE health budget this interim, and so you will still see her around. She just is not doing these budgets anymore. I appreciate the chance to add these to the collection of budgets that I get to present with you. So, there are several documents in front of you, and before we get started with the actual budget for the agency, I just want to kind of talk you through where we're at in this process so that we all have a clear and shared understanding of where the House is standing in the budget process. So prior to last year, the way that the budgets worked was that the state agencies submitted an agency request in September to both the Division of Budget and to KLRD. The governor's office reviewed these requests, and then they issued the initial official recommendation, which is known as the governor's budget bill. Then the legislature took up that bill, reviewed it, and made final determinations for appropriations, and that was for both the current year and the budget year. Last year, this changed a little bit. This year, it's a little bit different as well, so I just want to make sure that everybody understands how the budget process is working this year. This year, the agency still submitted their agency requests in September to both the Division of Budget and to KLRD. The governor's office did review. Her budget will be presented to the joint meeting for the House Appropriations and Senate Ways and Means tomorrow morning, so the governor's budget will be presented at that point. There was a special committee on the state budget that met in the fall, which discussed the agency request only, where KLRD presented budget summaries based on the agency request, with nothing about the governor's recommendations in it. That is the same document that you have in front of you that says budget summary. That committee adopted several motions for the creation of a legislative-led appropriations bill, which was introduced in both the House and the Senate today. It's House Bill 2434 is the appropriations bill. So with that said, we want to make sure you understand what the special committee on the state budget discussed and what their global motions were. So in front of you, you have what should be a 2-page document that says Kansas State School for the Blind, which says Budget Committee Report in the bottom right-hand corner. This is the document you're going to be seeing throughout session. This is the one that after we finish our recommendations in this committee, we will add those to the bottom of this. It will go out to the committee for your review. It's what House Appropriations will be receiving to track the whole process. So this is just a quick overview of what has happened for each agency. You'll see, you can always ask to see where we're at in the process. We'd be happy to send them to you. They go up online. But it's a way to track things as we're going through session. You also have a gray piece of paper, which is the global motions that the special committee on the state budget provided to during the November, December meetings. I'm going to run through those really quick for you. And with each of the agencies, as we go through it, I'll make sure to let you know which ones of those affected the agencies in front of you. So they deleted any requests by the agencies to restore the 1.5% operating reductions, which was contained in Senate Bill 2025, Senate Bill 125 for the fiscal year 26. They deleted any requests for the addition of FTE and associated funding above the fiscal year 2026 approved level. They deleted agency-requested salary increases unless directed by existing law or parts of a former career progression plan for fiscal year 26 and 27. They deleted reappropriations from all appropriated funds, excluding capital improvements, the education caseloads, human services caseloads, and assigned council caseloads in fiscal year 26. They deleted all enhancements and supplementals requested by state agencies for fiscal year 26 and 27. They adopted the fall education consensus. They adopted the fall bids, assigned council caseloads. They adopted the fall lottery revised estimates, and they adopted the fall human service consensus caseloads estimates. For the budget today, the ones that you would want to keep in the back of your head is items 1 through 5. Well, 1 through 3 and 5, because School for the Blind does not have any reappropriations. You also have a one-page multicolored document, which is the shorthand from KLRD. So this shows the adjustments made by the special committee to the School for the Blind's requests. So as you look at it, it does look different than previous years' versions of this. If it says action reversed, the special committee on the state budget did not include it. So if it says add to the right, so like, for example, it says add 87,272 SIBF, and it says action reversed, the special committee did not add that money in. So those are the items that were removed. Anywhere where it says action reversed, just think opposite of whatever the phrase is, and that is what that is currently in the process. I believe that's all of my documents that I have that just kind of show you where we're at in the process. I do want to point out when we're talking about the shorthand, we're really talking about changes or adjustments to the request. So if the special committee on the state budget agreed with something within the agency's request, it does not appear on the shorthand because it's already part of the bill as it stands. So this is only modifications to the agency request. As you know, as I said, the governor's bill is going to be out soon. So we do not currently have the governor's bill. We will be happy to provide what the governor's bill changes and what the suggestions are there to your committee as well. The Joint Committee on State Building Construction has also not been able to meet yet this session. They did hear the 5-year capital improvement plans over the summertime, but they have not yet met during session to provide their recommendations on this. And so we will make sure that we are giving that information to you as soon as we have it as well. But because of the way that the timing and everything is working, there are still a couple of those outstanding documents that you will receive from us later. I just don't have them to be able to hand them to you today. And with that,
I'll pause you for a second. I mean, some of these are new, so just wanted to pause for any questions and seeking any understanding that you might not have around these first documents. And Jennifer told me that she was going to take her time on this one and just kind of, on every single one of them, that if you really understand this, then all of them that you see in this committee and in other committees will be a whole lot easier. So please, if you have any questions around these documents that she's showing us, now is a good time for that. Representative Owsley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Jennifer. Just on the multicolored sheet, somebody asked me recently, the action reversed. I put it that you could say request denied because there was no action, really taken. And if you can confirm that's a fair translation of the language on the page, it might be useful for the committee. And then when we do get the governor's budget, and I guess this is a question for both staff and Mr. Chairman, after we get the governor's budget tomorrow, will we proceed like last year and that we'll have 3 columns on the pages coming to us to show the special budget committee, you know, recommendation, the governor's recommendation, and move forward like that?
I have my assumptions, but I'll let Jennifer give us any clarity she can.
Absolutely. Regarding the committee recommendation, if you were to say that it was denied, that is a fair answer. If you think about it that way, if it says delete and it says denied, it means we didn't delete it. If it says add, denied, the special budget committee did not do it. It is just saying that whatever the action is on the left side did not happen. And so it's reversed because of the way that the system that we work with. But we are still workshopping better ways to make the shorthand understandable for everybody as we continue to move forward. So it would not surprise me if we see a different version of this again next year as we continue to try to make it easier to understand. As far as how is it going to be with the governor's recommendation, so the budget summary itself, we're not changing at all. The budget summary was the agency request as it was, and then we're giving you the information that is what the special committee on the state budget did with their information. I'm not exactly certain what the form is for what we're doing with the governor's budget. I know we're going to have one, I just haven't seen it yet, and so I would be hesitant to speak as to exactly what it's going to look like.
Well, no, I would just be able to say, we'll give it space, you know, whatever sheet of paper that it's on, whether it gets added or it's its own entity, we'll give it consideration on probably, I mean, for this one, that would be Thursday when we review and make recommendations. That will be part of the recommendations. And, you know, Jennifer and her team would be able to explain that to us if there's something that we don't understand when we're trying to make those decisions. So we'll give it space.
Thank you both.
Any other questions around these kind of new documents? If not, Representative McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I'm just trying to picture like how we're going forward this week. Will there be somebody from the governor's office to answer our questions? And I'm assuming we won't get that document until Thursday, or would it be tomorrow?
If we're going to receive it tomorrow for appropriations, I believe that it will be accessible to anyone. It'll be an open document at that point, and it should be accessible tomorrow. If not, I will have committee assistant get it out to the committee through email as soon as we have access to it.
Okay, I was just trying to remember in years past, I felt like there was somebody from the governor's office that answered questions if we had them during our conversation, but no, okay, maybe not. Representative Vestas says no, but.
I think for the most part, we're working with research and revisers, their support right in this room.
Okay, thank you.
They have access to that information. All right, with that, thank you all. Jennifer, you may continue.
Absolutely. So we are going to actually go to the Kansas State School for the Blind budget summary. This is the one that says budget summary at the top of it, and then down in the bottom right-hand corner, KLRD is trying to make our documents more universal, and so it does make it a little bit more confusing when I hand you a budget committee report at the same time as the actual agency request, so thank you for letting me be able to explain that a little bit more before we get started. John Harding is the superintendent for the school, and he is here and will be presenting testimony after me. For today's budget, I am going to go a little bit more slowly through the document itself because it is also changed from last year. So we just want to make sure that you are understanding the full document. Tomorrow's budget will spend a little bit less time going through each section, but we will still cover everything for the School for the Deaf. So the Kansas State School for the Blind is an accredited elementary and high school, which is serving as the center of education for Kansas children who are either blind or visually impaired. In addition to on-campus direct services, KSSB has an extensive outreach program that includes providing direct support in public schools. On this front page here, you can see a 5-year expenditures by fiscal year as well as the version. So 24 and 25 are the actuals. 26 approved is what was in last year's budget bill. 26 agency is the agency request, and 27 agency is the agency request that was submitted this fall. The bottom of the page is a pie chart, which is intended to give you a perspective of the size of the agency's budget relative to the overall state budget. I will say that for the two schools, you're looking at a section that looks very white right now. That is because it is less than 1% of the overall state budget. When we review the school or the State Department of Education, you are going to see a much larger solid green chunk because that will be the section that is specific to that agency. But it's just to give you an idea overall when we talk about each of these budgets, how much of the overall state budget, both in SGF and all funds, that you are looking at. Page 2 is a new section of the budget called a Budget and Policy Snapshot. So for smaller agencies, this page is going to be a little bit more sparse because there are less supplementals and enhancements. But this is meant to be like a one-page quick review of what the supplements and enhancements are for each agency. So for larger agencies that can have multiple ones, you'd see more of them. For this agency, you can see that there is none in fiscal year 26, but there are 2 enhancement requests in 27, which we'll get into when we talk about the actual fiscal years. Page 3 is the standard 10-year expenditures history that you were used to seeing from KLRD, including both in a graph and then the table below. We did include 5-year change, a 10-year change, and a 3-year average as well, as including the CPIU change over on the right-hand side of those tables. So you can see the SGF amounts and the change from the previous year, all funds and the change from the previous year, FTE amounts per year, and then the CPIU change. Page 4 is the expenditures by major purpose, and those would be the state operations, state aid and assistance, capital budget and debt, and other assistance. For this specific agency, you can see that the majority of it is, or 77% of it is in state operations. The bottom half is breaking it out into the areas that are more familiar to most of us, where we break state operations into salaries and wages, contractual services, commodities, and capital outlay, and then breaks the state aid apart and the capital budget and debt as well. In that table, you can see that 63.8% of the budget goes to salaries and wages, and that 21.5% goes to capital improvements, which is the majority of the budget for this agency. Page 5 then breaks down the sections even further. So this is the state operations table, and this is broken down by expenditure category into their subcategories. These subcategories comes from accounts and reports from their expenditure classifications codes. So it just is providing more detail for some of those who were requesting more detail underneath each of the sections. So you can see salaries and wages has pay, benefits, and shrinkage. Contractual services has a variety of different fees and communications, rent, and other things underneath it. Pages 6 breaks out the other assistance and the capital budget and debt. I do want to pause and say that when we talk about capital budget and debt, the majority of agencies that you look at over the course of the time do not have debt. It's all capital improvements. So when we talk about capital improvements, that is under the capital budget and debt section, but there is not debt, and you can tell that by seeing the line right above the buff total line says the debt service, and it's got zeros or dashes next to it across. Most of the debt comes through the Department of Administration. There are some of the other agencies that do, but for our purposes, we're only going to be looking at capital improvements. There is no debt in the school for the blind. Page 7 has the standard expenditures by program, as well as the FTE positions by their programs. For this agency, there's an administration program, there was a COVID-19 transactions program, and there continues to be an instructional services program, support services program, and a capital improvements program. So the numbers are all just broken out for you in different ways for you to be able to see and understand it. Page 8 is expenditures by fund. You can see on the top of that page that 58% of the budget comes from SGF for this agency, and then another 21.5% comes from the State Institutions Building Fund, or the SIBF fund. The bottom of the page is a fee fund analysis for the largest fee fund underneath the agency. Top of page 9 has agency fees. For this agency, that includes out-of-state student fees, both for day students and students who reside in the dorms, and then a student activity fee. All of this data up until this point is connected. It's organized differently to allow for different people who think of things in different ways to have understanding and context, but it's all the same information, just broken out in different size chunks, depending on how deep you want to go. The next section will start us with the actual fiscal year budget, so I'm happy to stand for questions here, Mr. Chair, if there's anything within the tables we want to discuss before we move to the actual budget.
Looks like we have a question. Representative Estes.
Thank you. Just for clarity, the out-of-state student fee day is $40,000 and the dorm is $20,000. So if you're an out-of-state dorm student, you're paying the 40 and the 20?
You know, Mr. Chair, that was one of those questions that I had in my head to talk with the agency about. I would defer to them right now, and if we don't have an answer today, we can get you one.
Thank you. I suspect our next conferee will address that. And if I may, Mr. Chairman, one other quick one. Okay, on your multicolor sheet, if you, in round numbers, add the 87,000 to the 718,000 for the roof replacement, you get to 806,000. But when you look at page 2 of what you just went over, the roof replacement is listed as 806,000 and the 87,000 is listed separately. So I don't think those numbers exactly coordinate.
That is a typo. So thank you for catching that for us.
You're welcome. Okay, I just wanted to
Appreciate
make.
you. No, it's always good to have more sets of eyes. Yes, page 2. I will get you a corrected version of page 2, first thing on my list. So
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss.
nope, that is human error. So thank you for catching it.
And I do a lot of those. Thank you.
And I just asked that Superintendent Harding would note that question for the representative and bring it forward when it's time for your testimony. Appreciate it. I saw you shaking your head over there that you had a solid answer. Jennifer, you can continue. Thank you.
Okay, page.
Hold on one second. Representative Poskin has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On page 1, under expenditures by fiscal year inversion, where it says fiscal year 2026 approved, and it goes over, and in the note, it says 2025 SB 125. Is that to reflect the 1.7% overall agency budget decrease? Or
Mr.
is
Chair,
that-
so that is the total amount that the agency was allotted in the Senate Bill 125 last year.
Okay.
That includes the 1.5% lapse that happened last year. It does not include, well, for this agency, it does not matter because there is not reappropriations, but there is a reappropriations 1.5% lapse that is not included in the number that would be listed there under the approved. But that is the amount after the 1.5% operating lapse that the agency was allotted through Senate Bill 125.
Thank you so much.
All right, now I think we're ready to proceed. No, thank you.
Absolutely. Page 10 starts the actual fiscal year analysis. So at the top, you can see the standard table that we have provided the last several years, which talks about the approved amount that came from Senate Bill 125. For this agency, that's 8.3 million SGF, and then 14.2 million all funds. In the table above, we do break out SIBF since it is a large chunk of the budget, so you can see how much SIBF is happening within this as well. Underneath the approved budget, we talk about the 1.5% lapse that the agency or that the legislature approved last year for state operations. For this agency, that was a decrease of just over $124,000 SGF. Last year's legislature also included money for a new campus gas line to replace a gas line on the campus, as well as money to abate hazardous material on the campus. For this agency, in the table above, you can see that there were no reappropriations and that there were no supplemental requests for 2026, so we moved to other changes. For this agency, there is a salaries and wages and a contractual services expenditure switch, which is a cost-neutral switch. It's about $242,000, but basically, it has no impact on their total expenditures. The agency has indicated it's hired a speech-language pathologist and a nurse, as a regular unclassified employees, and they've decreased the contractual services that they need accordingly. So it's a cost-neutral change that happened. There are also all other adjustments, which is a decrease of $450 all in federal funding in fiscal year 2026, which brings us to a total of 8.3 million SGF in, and then all funds is 14.2 million. And as you could see in the shorthand, there was nothing for fiscal year 2026, so that same amount is what the special committee on the state budget recommended for this agency, so the total still would be the number that's in the buff at the bottom of that table for this agency. Page 11 starts the fiscal year 2027 analysis. At the top of this table, you can see that we have the 2025 Senate Bill 125 approved. That is for 2026. There are some agencies that are biennials, and so they would have a 2027 in there, but this was, for these agencies, it is 2026. Just to give you a reference point for where we were starting from the last fiscal year. We do take one-time adjustments out, so you can see there's a decrease in $450,000. This is for one-time adjustments in capital improvements projects. So for this specific agency, that is the replacement of the gas line and the abatement of the asbestos in the utility tunnels. So those are slotted to finish in 26, so we removed it as a base beginning for them. So the subtotal with adjustments for this agency when they started was $8.3 million SGF, it's been a long day already, SGF, and then a total of $13.8 million as their beginning request. They do have 2 enhancement requests, which you can see there. It's items 2 and 3 at the bottom of page 11. So the agency's request includes just over $718,000 SIBF to replace the roof of the Edlin Dormitory and their adjacent dining hall facilities for fiscal year 2027. And the agency states that this is due to the fact that the roofs are 30 years old and they are suffering leaks and related damage. And then they have a rehab and repair base increase that they are asking for. This is just over $87,000 SIBF. And this would be to account for inflation within their capital improvements project. Moving forward after 2027, that would be rolled into the base rehab and repair, so it would not be a continual request, it would just be rolled into their base. Those 2 items, items 2 and 3, were not included in the budget bill that was introduced today. So the items that were not included in the special committee for the special committee on the state budget are items 2 and 3 on page 11. When we hit top of page 12, under other changes, all of these are currently in the budget. So if you're thinking about this with items 2 and 3, if you want to add them, you would need to do a motion to put them back into the budget. For items 4 through 7, if you want to remove them, you would have to do a motion. But if you want to keep items 4 through 7, you don't have to do anything. They're currently there. So just to try to walk through the process of how, when thinking about recommendations as well. So under other changes, the agency's request includes an additional just over $441,000, including just over $300,000 SGF for their increases in salaries and wages. I will say that you may say, but Jennifer, that you told us that we were not doing salaries and wages increases in 27, so I'm confused by it because you told us the global said that. The majority of this increase is due to the updated teacher salary schedule for USD 233, which is Olathe Public Schools. And by statute, the schools get to have a pay parity with that school district. So because it's by statute, it was exempted from that global motion, and so this money stays in due to that. So just before somebody asked me directly about that global, I thought I'd mention that that's why it is staying in. So item number 5 is $100,000, which comes from the fee funds to purchase a car in fiscal year 27. The agency currently has 11 cars in their fleet, and they anticipate that one of these cars will have over 100,000 miles in 27. My understanding is that this would be a purchase to make it a wheelchair accessible car to help convey their students to appointments and extracurricular activities. And this is due to the fact that there are more students at the school using wheelchairs, so they need more cars to be able to ferry them around as needed. Item number 6 is a capital improvements increase, and this is for, this is just over $202,000 for the 3 standard maintenance and rehabilitation areas, which includes safety and security systems on campus, the HVAC system maintenance and repair, and the general rehab and repair on campus. And the majority of this is dealing with the window replacements in rehab and repair. Finally, in all other adjustments, there is an additional just over $142,000 all funds, which is mainly due to increases in contractual services and capital outlay. It includes building space rental, and capital outlay includes information processing equipment and software for $68,000. The agency's request comes to $8.6 million SGF and $15.4 million all funds. And then it'd still be $8.6 million SGF is what is in the budget from the special committee on the state budget. And then that's what I get for trying to do math right up here. 14 million and some change, and I'll get that number for you when I'm sitting back down so you have that exactly for yourselves. And that's what is in the budget bill that came out today. With that, Mr. Chair, happy to stand for questions on any of the actual budget requests, the rest of this document, any of the other documents, or anything else you can think of to ask me right this second.
Well, thank you for your presentation and going through it thoroughly with us. I have a question on number 4 and 27. I guess my question is which, as far as the 300,000 or the 441 that is tied to 233's scheduled increase? Is there 2 different ones, or is it 300 included in there? The math that I'm doing is that there are 2 separate increases from 8.7 to 9.4. Just a little clarity around that.
Sure. So the way that when KLRD is presenting the documents, we will always give you the all funds number first, and then we will tell you how much of the SGF is coming out of it. So that 300,000 that we were talking about is part of that $441,000 increase. Some of the money for the employees comes from fee funds or from federal funds, and so that would also be included in there as well for the total. So we always start with the total amount, and then we tell you the amount of SGF in that. Does that help clarify that?
Yes, it does. What other questions do we have for Representative Estes?
I have 4, so feel free to give other people a turn in between.
Go for a couple, and I'll see if I see any hands to interrupt you.
Okay, so on the line of thought that you were in, and the 441,000, it says the majority, and by definition, majority is not all. Do you know how much of this 441,000 was related to the Olathe Public School connection?
So, Mr. Chair, I don't have that up here with me currently. You are correct in that I did say majority of it. There is also not just the pay parity with the other school, but there is step increases that teachers get to have within their own process as well, and so that is incorporated in this document. So it's, but I can get you the actual specific dollars if you would like. I just don't have it up here with me right this second.
So ultimately, the question I'm really getting to is like, was all of that increased for teachers under contract in a negotiated setting? Or did any of it go to any other staff there? And you may not know the question to that. It's a little bit specific.
I don't have that information here. If we don't get that information for you today, we will make sure we get that for you before recommendations.
Thank you.
Representative McNorton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I do have a question on the purchase of the new vehicle. Do they come to us every time you want to buy a new vehicle to get it, or do you have something in your budget that is a maintenance type replacement plan that's just, every 5 years, or you buy one a year or something along that line? I'm a little confused why you're putting that in as a line item.
So, Mr. Chair, the actual expenditures going to items like a car, we do call out because they are larger purchases than just the basic general. They do have a plan which includes that if it goes over 130,000 miles for a passenger car or van, or 150,000 miles or more for a truck, or it requires repairs that are estimated to cost more than equal to about 30% of a replacement car, they do go ahead and budget for a replacement. And so they do have, I can tell you that the average mile per car in the fleet currently is 35,914 is their average mileage. In their estimate for 2027, they have cars that are in general 38,000, and then they have a car that they believe will be over 100,000 miles next year. So in the normal scheme of things would be preparing to get a car, but because they are also looking for this wheelchair accessible car, they are looking for it earlier, and so therefore they are coming. But anytime a car purchase is in the budget, it is considered under an other changes usually, not a supplement or enhancement request, but it is something that KLRD calls out because of the price of cars.
Representative Steele.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for your wonderful presentation. Just a couple clarifications. On page 4, the salaries and wages, I understand that the difference is coming from the page 12, number 4. Is that a fair assumption? From fiscal year 26 to 27?
Yes.
Okay. So then on page 7, the instructional services, that's a pretty big, I mean, that's $500,000. I was just curious, what's the big difference for this year for instructional services if the salaries are looked at under?
So the instructional services is a program underneath the agency. So there's the administration program, instructional services program, and support services program. As to what exactly that change and jump is, it could be due to salaries. There's also contractual services, capital outlay. All of that is condensed into this one line. This is just the dollar amount for the full program. This isn't salaries and wages or contractual services. This is just the full amount for that program. If you'd like some more breakdown specifically for that program, we'd be happy to get that for you.
I would really be interested just because it is close to 500,000 increase. And if it's not all in salaries, then that would be great. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Estes.
May I ask a question of our reviser?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Nick, there seems to be a little bit of confusion out with the School for the Deaf and the School for the Blind, and some of the teachers were told that they could not negotiate, or that the schools could not give greater than Olathe. And does our statute say that it must be exactly what they are or no less than they are? Is it permissible for the schools to negotiate higher salaries for their teachers?
So, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, Representative Estes, so these statutes, 7611A17 is the this is the state school for the deaf statute, but let's go to the school of the blind statute. They're the exact same. The statute does say that the persons employed by those schools, and specifically for today, the state school for the blind, as a teacher or licensed personnel during a school year, shall be paid compensation for such employment at a rate that is not less than the rate of compensation that is paid to a teacher employed by Olathe.
So they could be paid more. Thank you. I just wanted to get that on the record. I appreciate that.
Any other questions for Jennifer? All right, with that, thank you for your presentation, and that gives us plenty of time for Superintendent Harding. Welcome, sir. Thank you for coming. I hear that you have some students coming to visit us on Thursday.
We do.
Any committee members that would like to book some students coming by your office to say hi on a budget that you help oversee? See them afterwards. I know they'd love to come by and see you. And with that, we're excited about your presentation.
Thank you for having me, Chair and Committee. It's a pleasure to be here and honored to represent the School for the Blind. I don't want to read my testimony. I'll just cover it briefly. I know there were some questions I wanted to address as well. But yeah, it's an honor to serve and to represent the school. We serve over 800 students in one way or another across the state. We've made a real effort to increase our outreach program, mostly through efficiencies, to make sure that students who are blind, birth to 21, have access to resources and training that is specialized that they need to thrive in their communities. And we're especially proud of the birth to 3 program that was started a few years ago. We're serving over 225 students birth to 3, mostly their families. So very proud of that growth in our outreach. We have for our 3 to 21 outreach program, and those are students in public schools. We're serving those students with a different outreach team, still teachers, teachers of students with visual impairment, orientation mobility specialists, teaching them skills so they can stay in their home communities and home schools, which we support. We don't want them to come to our school unless they have to. And then we have about 65 students who come to our school pretty much 9 months out of the year who need really intensive support. So that adds up, and those are just direct service numbers. Of course, we send materials out across the state, Braille materials, technology materials, large print materials to kids who don't necessarily receive direct services from us, but still need those supports in place. And our growth is something I'm really proud of. Our school is growing. It wasn't always the case in my 13 years there. Growth hadn't always been happening, and I think across the board we're seeing growth without necessarily asking for additional funds. We're just getting creative and I think innovative in the way that we expend those funds, so I'm proud of that. We're focused on academics, of course. We're a school, and so kids do have to read and do basic math if they're going to succeed. We know that. And we've made a real effort to address that as a school. But beyond that, you know, what happens when they leave? 70% of adults who are blind or low vision, not only in Kansas really, but across the country, are unemployed or underemployed. So that's a real waste of resources. We want to change that. You know, how do we change that? So, you know, we want to showcase what kids can do. This year I was especially proud of our partnerships. As an example, with Make 48, it's an inventors competition. 3 of our girls who were transition age or high school age formed a team and competed against some of the brightest students in the Midwest. These are CAPS students, and won a regional competition. They went to nationals, won a nationals competition. They awarded $10,000 as a team, and now they have an opportunity to develop a nonprofit, manufacture their product overseas, perhaps, and figure out how to deliver that product to organizations in the Kansas City area. We want to make that really a different strand as a part of our transition program and support them in doing that. You know, the ironic thing, if you were to look at their test scores, they wouldn't maybe be as high, but when you give them high expectations, when you give them access, they can do amazing things. So we're really proud of that. A couple other examples I brought with me. We're making clappers for the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Steve Jones from Wales, United Kingdom, visited our campus and says, you know, we pay the Italian companies a lot of money to make these clappers for blind baseball teams across Europe. He saw our makerspace and what our kids were doing and said, can you make those for us? So our kids, our middle school and high school kids, are now making clappers for blind baseball leagues across Europe. So we're really proud of that. And then some of you know that our kids run a blind brailled bean coffee operation. The best coffee never seen is what they call it. They roast their own beans. They roast their beans, they package them, they market them, and these are life skills kids who, formerly would have been doing things like crushing cans and shredding paper. My goal was to get rid of all those when I came to the school and make sure they were doing meaningful, interesting things. So really proud of that. We invite you to come up for coffee, but bigger than these examples, it's giving kids skills. When they came to our school in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, they had them making brooms in the shop. And in some ways, we've come full circle. We need to offer more opportunities than just college. So we want our kids to have opportunities to use their hands to work and then to be productive and go back to their communities and do the same thing. So vocational training, entrepreneurship, community integration, partnerships. The last thing I will say is our old carriage house. Somebody asked me a few years ago, how old are your buildings? Well, they're anywhere from 1890s to 1990s. The dorm that needs a new roof we've been talking about, and the cafeteria, those were our newest buildings in 1990. Our transition kids don't really have a place to congregate, to work, to do the things that we want them to do as part of these pathways, and we'd like to rehab that carriage house. We're not asking for any money for that. Our nonprofit is seeking donations from private organizations and businesses in the Kansas City area, so we're excited about that. You might be hearing down the road, but we want to rehab that because right now it's mostly empty as storage, and we want to make sure we can preserve that and connect it not only to the past, but to the future for our kids. So thank you, and I know the question related to tuition came up. I wanted to see if I can address that now. It was a good question, thank you. Yes, so if students come from out of state, Missouri is typically what students we serve, so districts within about an hour of the Kansas City Metro can bus students in. Most of those are day students, and they pay $40,000 per year. That amount is set by the State Board of Education. If they stay in our dorm, then it's an additional $20,000. But I had some questions last year from committee members, both Senate and House, and I asked the State Board this year if they would raise that amount to $50,000 for day students, $25,000 for dorm students. I think that it hadn't changed in my 13 years at the school, so they did approve that change. So next year, it will go up just a little bit. I'm trying to think if there were some other questions that needed addressed. I'm happy to answer those now. I just want to thank the committee for your time and support.
We appreciate you being here, and we appreciate your service. I think one that will lead into a past question is one of them that I had for you. In fiscal year 27, salary increases largely driven by the statutory alignment with USD 233 salary schedule. Can you clarify how much of this increase is statutory versus discretionary, like you going above and beyond for your staff and what is kind of the base that's given to you?
Chair and committee, it's a good question. I can't give you an exact amount of how much we went above and beyond that. I don't have authority for my own salary. That's set by the State Board. The only other thing I would say is the step increases, as Jennifer mentioned. And by the way, thank you. Thanks to Jennifer for guiding us and helping us in this process. But I'd have to ask my budget director to say how much additional. The only authority I have really is to give supplemental supports or contracts for staff, athletic director, yearbook, these sorts of things, and we do that. But I don't know that increase would account for the differences that you're seeing.
So maybe describe your negotiation. Who does that? Because your school board is the state school board. So do they handle your negotiation above and beyond? We just wanted to kind of be clear on that. It was kind of some questions in the hallway, and just clarify kind of the process of that and who handles that, and then where you come in.
Chair and committee, I appreciate the question. It's a good question. We don't actually have a bargaining unit at the school for the blind. We don't have NEA that is bargaining for the teachers. We simply follow what the state law requires, which is whatever USD 233 gives to their teachers the previous year is what we get typically by law in the following year. So we weren't asking for increases in salary or numbers of days. We're actually quite content. A lot of our teachers work in our summer school program, our extended school year. We have a 3-week on-campus program, plus we do extended school year on the road. So we're doing a lot of these events in some of your communities across the state, and we've grown that. So that's an opportunity for teachers to work in the summer beyond their 181 contract days.
One more question, then I'll come to you. Are you guys in sync as far as days? That's coming up in our next budget tomorrow, but as far as USD 233's days, school days, are you guys in parity on that already, or?
Yeah, my understanding, Chair and Committee, is that USD 233 is 187 days. We've stayed at 181 for as long as I've been there. It's been 181 days, so our salary schedule looks a little bit different if you were to look at it, simply because we have fewer days. But again, we're not asking for that. My teachers have not asked for additional days, and not asking for additional salary for those days.
Do you think your extra time in the summer is part of that rationale, that you're already, in a sense, going above their amount of days, so they don't necessarily want to add that on? Is that part of the rationale?
Some teachers have summer plans and like 181 and can plan their vacation. But yes, I would say probably 2/3 of our staff during the August through May school year do end up working summer school in June. I mean, they love their work. They love working with kids, and it's a little bit different environment. We have more kids actually come in from public schools in the summer. They enjoy that. A lot of fun, a lot of learning, and yeah, that's my sense. I can't speak for others, but that's really my sense.
Well, that would make sense. Thank you. Representative Estes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, because I'm on the same thought process you are. You said that you're in line with law because matching it, but I think there's some who would like it to be remembered that law is not less than and more is possible. But you also said you didn't have the authority, and remembering that you have the state board as kind of your board, is that something you would have to go to state board for if you ever wanted to exceed that amount?
I don't think the board would, my understanding is the board wouldn't control that. It's really what the legislature would determine. And we typically follow whatever is negotiated at KSD. That's typically what we have followed, and that would be a decision for the legislature to make. I know they often align our schools, and we recognize the importance of that. And it would be mostly problematic for this year, of course. Our calendar's been set for almost a year, and it would be very difficult to make adjustments in days for this year. If the legislature made the decision to extend the school year for the School for the Deaf and wanted to align the School for the Blind, we would honor that, of course.
I apologize, especially to those online. That probably didn't sound good on audio. I'm saying like a rate higher than what Olathe is doing. Would you have to go to the State Board of Education if you said we wanted to pay our teachers a higher rate than what the teachers in Olathe are getting? The law already gives you permission to do that because we set a minimum and we don't put a cap on the maximum. Would you have the authority to do that yourself, or would you need to go to the State Board?
Chair and Representative, we would need the money to pay the teachers. So we wouldn't be able to pay them unless we had the money to do so. We simply wouldn't have that in our current budget. So it would come from the legislature to say, we're giving you the money for these additional days.
Okay, but the authority is what I'm asking.
Do I have the authority to increase that? I believe that is the authority given to us, but we would I always inform the school, the State Board of Education for something of that magnitude. We'd want them to be involved with that.
Okay,
thank you. At least to be aware of that.
Thank you very much, and it's nice to have you back.
Thank you for having me.
Representative Steele.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, I'm trying to follow a couple different documents because I got my folder from last year here, and it looks like every year the salaries and wages goes up approximately $300,000. So what is it that's bringing it up an additional 111 or something like that?
Chair and Representative, as I said, I don't know I can't tell you exactly what additional increases would be included in those $100,000. I just don't know off the top of my head. I'd need to check with my budget office to say what is that and where is it coming from.
And then, Mr. Chair, if I may, one more, thank you. If you had any answers regarding my earlier question of the instructional services and really what was encompassed in that.
Can you refresh my memory, please?
Sure. On page 7 of the document, there looks to be about a $500,000 increase in instructional services. And it looks like that also is going up significantly every year. So I'm just curious if you knew what was all encompassed in that.
Chair and Representative, I would be just, conjecturing. I do know that we asked for money for a preschool program and an early childhood development center, and we have hired additional instructional assistants for that program. We received a one-time, I think it was an enhancement or supplemental, I'm not sure the right term, but $300,000 appropriation for starting up the preschool and early childhood. So we have a director, and then as that grows, so we've got 25 children in that program now. As that has grown, we've hired additional staff, but that just comes from revenue. We charge families of children who are not blind for that program. Children who are blind or low vision are free. So some of that additional cost might come from hiring instructional assistants for that program.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative McNorton.
So you mentioned, thank you, Mr. Chair. You mentioned the number of in-house students you have, and those are, I'm assuming, for 9 months at a school year. What's your goal? Do those kids have other disabilities maybe, or why don't you do those out in the homeschool? What's why do you, how do you break that down, I guess, or?
Chair and Representative, great question. Probably take an hour to answer that in totality, but
you don't have to go that.
Yeah, it really depends where the students come from, and yes, what additional disabilities they have, or what was the nature of their vision loss. Sometimes you'll have a student who has a traumatic vision loss who was typical in all ways, and then loses their vision, and the local district may not have a teacher the blind or visually impaired to support them, so they'll come in. Our goal is always to return students into their home district and home school, but many times schools aren't simply equipped to accept their return. So yes, some of them, I'd say about a third of our students have additional, sometimes significant disabilities. I know what the rehab and repair budget we're asking for as an example. Our Vogel building was built in the 1960s. Those bathrooms are not equipped for kids in wheelchairs and standers and walkers and the things, special equipment that they use. So some of our limits are just building space and adequate bathroom space. But our goal is always to return students to home district, but also to provide intensive short-term placement options for kids who need that. And we do have, kids all over the spectrum, some who are very gifted academically, others who have severe, significant disabilities. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
I've got several in the queue. I'll put you guys in the queue. I'm going to ask one, and then we'll go to Representative Owsley. Approximately 75% of your budget is directed to instructional services, which is pretty awesome. With administration costs around 1% to 2%, pretty low. What practices have helped you maintain that balance as costs have increased in the education environment? What practices?
Well, I think an emphasis on students, and we probably one of the few school districts in the state. We're not a district, but one of the agencies or schools in the state that doesn't have a problem when we need to hire teachers. People who work as teachers of students with visual impairment want to work for us. They want to be a part of a community where it's appreciated, understood, and their work is valued. So we're very fortunate in that regard. If we have any problems hiring, it's usually around instructional assistants or paraprofessionals. They tend to be tougher to find and more oftentimes short-term hires. But we've been very fortunate to manage our budget, to grow our outreach, and to develop relationships with school districts so they understand why we're here. We're not there to steal their children. We're there to help them when they need it.
Appreciate the answer. Representative Owsley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate the discussion, and you touched upon the enhancement request of capital improvement R&R base increase. This is an additional $87,272. Is that going to be a one-time increase, or is that going to be year over year?
Chair and Representative, I think, if I understand your question correctly, that amount is usually for inflation increases. My operations director, we actually share costs with the school for the DAPs. So my IT department, HR, business office, and facilities are shared. And so I know he tells me all the time, I mean, 10% is usually what the costs are increasing with tariff for materials. You know, all these building projects that we have require steel and glass and aluminum. Those expenses typically rise about 10%. So he does typically ask for an increase just for inflation.
Okay, Mr. Chair. And then you have the dining hall roof replacement as well. And being as the building construction committee has not met, this committee is likely to put in a recommendation before that committee will to the House Appropriations Committee. So just tell us a little bit about these enhancements and why you feel like they should be approved.
Well, again, I'm thinking through all the different building projects that we have going on and the enhancements. I know that we talked about moving the gas line. That runs under one of our breezeways. That's not a good thing. We have asbestos in removal and hazardous abatement for a lot of our projects as they're older buildings. And elevators, things like that. I think one of the challenges, I don't know if it answers your question or not, I was just talking with my business office and my facilities directors that some of the rules have changed in terms of how we acquire the money to make purchases for rehab and repair, HVAC, for instance, elevators. Apparently a new rule is emanated that says you can't pay in your contract with providers 50% up front. Well, if they we want a new HVAC system, they'll often request us or require us to pay 50% up front. Well, we no longer can do that. We had an elevator a couple years ago in our Brighton building that went in, 1950s building, and they won't deliver an elevator. Otis won't deliver that elevator unless you pay them 50% up front. So we're constantly trying to negotiate some of the rules. We understand the reason for those rules. There's accountability in place and reasons, purposes for that, but it makes it a challenge sometimes to get projects done in a timely fashion.
On that question, how are and then I'm coming to Representative Shmoy, how are the improvements that we approved last year, how are those projects progressing? I forget the full scope of them. I should have grabbed that, but there was several last year.
Yeah, thank you for asking. I know the big ones on my mind that I see every day. We had asked for money for a new gymnasium that was built in 1973, 74. Original flooring, mercury was underneath it. It was crumbling and in really bad shape. And that project finally came to completion. Got it all done. I'd love to have you out. We're very proud of that. That was a big one. Windows replacement in our Vogel building. 1960s building, original windows that sometimes would open, sometimes not, very leaky. That has been completed and is beautiful, and I'm thrilled with that. So those are a couple of the big ones. HVAC, I know HVAC has been improved and upgraded in Vogel building. I'm not as well versed as our facilities person, but we're trying to get rid of the big boiler and have each building on its own unit. John Martello handles that. He presents to the Joint Building Committee, I know, so that's been heard by the Joint Building Committee and has a 5-year plan and sticks with that and makes sure that we're lining up not only our facilities just to keep them up, but to use them in ways that we need. The Vogel bathrooms as an example. I've told them I really need bigger bathrooms. I need those adapted so we can have kids changed in here. They need privacy to change, even if they're not going to the restroom. There's no place to do that right now except the girls' locker room, and that's not convenient to the classroom. So just some examples. We're trying to use old buildings. We always try to fill them up and use them, and we're grateful for them. It's a miracle that we're still here from 1867, but it does take money to rehab old buildings for new purposes, and I think we've been able to do that.
Well, I'm glad that gymnasium got done. A bit of a rehabber myself, and when you actually finish a project, it's such a milestone. So I'm glad it's happening. Representative Shmoy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to take you back to the hiring and salary. I'm just wondering, I know you said that hiring's pretty easy. Are you guys running a full staff or are we skeleton crew? What's it look like for you guys?
All of our positions and certified positions are filled. I don't have any open right now. I have people who contact me and want to work for us. Often they want to work outreach because they can work, remotely or from home or serve a particular area. I don't have any positions. I wish I could. One of my dreams is to be able to hire more people because I believe when we serve kids, we do that based on needs and data. And we can provide those, really excellent services with some of the best staff in the Midwest. So I'd like to do more. I do the best we can. The only places where we have a rotating open is with instructional assistants. We've increased the salary for those to $20 an hour for some positions. If they're one-to-ones, they get paid a little bit higher. And if they're in a general, what we call a floater position, they get paid at least $15. So not great, but and as you can imagine, people in those positions are often working two jobs, or they'll jump when they can get $1 more an hour sometimes. So that's always a bit of a struggle. But in terms of our certified staff, we're doing really quite well.
That is great to hear. Thank you.
Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The carriage house, I'm trying to place in my mind where that sits on the campus.
Chair and Representative, the carriage house sits on the north side of campus along Washington Avenue. It was originally called the Stable. An architect from KCK designed that with fire engine number 9. If you know Kansas City, that's still standing a little bit later, 1911. It was originally just a work building. It was designed to hold horses and the carriages that they used to build the campus. The school was there before the city was there, so they were putting wells in and cisterns and things like that. There's tunnels underneath the entire campus. It's served over the years as different, home for different purposes. We've had accessible arts in that building at one time toward the end. We've used it for security, has been located in there, but it's neat and it's old, and we are getting some help from the community, from engineers, architects who know historical properties. It is not on the register, so it doesn't require any, special considerations, and we would obviously want the legislature to know about that and at some point to become involved in it. My goal is to really raise money for rehab of that building in phases, and then make it habitable so that kids can be back in there. We have to do a lot of assessment, hazardous waste assessment, soil samples, things like that.
Who is handling the fundraising? Which group?
A guy named Greg Lever is the development director for KC Blind All-Stars. We've already received some money and donations for that purpose. And again, we know it's a difficult time to be asking for money from the legislature. Our goal is to show and demonstrate that the community's invested. It's either the second or third oldest building in Wyandotte County. I think Grinter House is maybe a little bit older, and Sour Castle, but it is a historic property. The community is very proud of it, and I think they would want us to use it for educating students, the reason it was there in the beginning.
Would you put me down? Because I will help. I know the history of that area, and I've written for the county museum.
Thank you.
That's a great thing. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to follow up. I really appreciate the way you have reached out to private funds and doing fundraising so that when you come here, your asks are always really modest. I wanted to go back to the question about the roof and the inflation request. How old is that roof? Or how old are, I guess it's 2 buildings, the roofs?
Actually, I consider it one building because it's the roof covers both. They were built at the same time. I believe it was built in 1994 or 95. Some of you may remember Superintendent Bill Doherty at the time. He was very, very tall superintendent. He was there, had brought that project to completion. So 30 years, in essence. It's a steel roof. I believe it's a steel roof, and it is starting to leak and show wear, of course.
Could I ask a follow-up?
Quickly, we got a couple more that we want to get in.
Should we decide to not give you the money, particularly with the increase in inflation, that 87,000. How would that impact your plans? Would you have to scale back your capital improvement?
We would, Chair, we would do what we always do, which is make do and try to repair the leaks as they happen, which is what we're doing now. Again, we understand it's a difficult time, and we want to, be mindful of that. I don't know how much longer we can do that. At some point, as you know, anybody that owns a house knows that at some point you have to replace it. So our ask is to do it now because the costs do go up, of course. So we'd like to do it sooner rather than later. But if it were not granted, we would make do by repairing it.
All right, Representative Hoskins said that she didn't need to because her question was asked. Appreciate that. And so Representative Featherston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question continues about the roof. I know in any building, when we have water coming in, our first concern is probably mold forming, so that feels like a safety hazard. And then I'm thinking, like, when we have a spill in a school for typical students, we want to get that cleaned up right away. It's a slip hazard. I assume that hazard is greater when involving students that are blind and otherwise impaired in their sight.
Chair and Representative, that's a good point, and I think when the building was built, actually, oddly enough, it's still an attractive building. At the time it was built, they used, in my estimation, substandard lighting as an example, and we had to replace some lighting. That goes back to your question, Chair, about how are those projects coming. We have new hallway lighting. It's amazing. Our staff and students can see down the hallway. But yes, actually, mold, slippage, and then actually mice. If mice are looking for water, we try to keep food out of dorm rooms, as you can imagine. Kids like to bring snacks, so we try to keep that mice-free. We do have that treated. But yeah, when you have leaks sitting around, it presents a problem, and then you get damages to carpet and ceiling tiles, and you're just constantly having to, chase that down. We have one maintenance person, so if it's something that is significant, we have to call in help and contract for that.
Appreciate the questions. I'm going to go to Jennifer. She had a little bit of an update that might help with some of the salary, kind of what the different increases are. And so she had a little bit more information. I wanted to give her space to share it. Jennifer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jennifer Light, KLRD. I don't have an exact dollar amount, but I do want to mention that there are fringe benefits in that dollar amount that we're talking about in 27 as well. The fringe benefits are increasing, especially in group health, and so there is that impacting that dollar amount as well. It's usually rolled straight into when we're discussing salaries and wages as other changes, because that's just part of the business of having employees is the fringe benefits. I still will get you a breakdown of that. I just don't have it right here, but I do want to mention when we're talking about majority is for that, there is also the fringe benefits section that changes. I also promised to get you the full amount for all funds for fiscal year 2027 without the enhancement requests. It's $14.6 million. For those who want the full dollar amount, it's $14,607,434 for their all funds. SGF remains the same. It's the SIBF that would be removed from that.
Appreciate it. Representative Estes.
Thank you. What would be the cost of a repair be, if you know, and how long would that repair last?
Chair and Representative.
On the roof.
The roof, yeah. I really am not, I'm afraid I can't answer the question. It really just depends what the nature of the problem would be. I know that, again, I'm not an expert, I'm not a roofer, I'm not a buildings guy, I'm a teacher, but there are often snow on these roofs. They incorporate features to control the snow falling off. And on that particular building, there's plastic pieces that often fall off the roof in the summer. They just roll off because they're worn out. I know there's a lot of problems with the guttering. One of the big problems is our campus is 10 acres and it sits on a hill if you've been there. And so on our paved surfaces, our sidewalks, if you get leakage that comes off the gutter systems because there's a leak in them, and then it pools and refreezes and we get a lot of falls. We've had a number of staff fall over the year just because even though we salt it and try to keep it safe, that becomes an issue, and that's a roof failure and guttering failure issue. I do want to, if I could, Chair, just one other question. There was a question about vehicles. We do have a lot of kids in wheelchairs, and $100,000 sounds pretty expensive, but when you actually price that out for lifts and ramps and some of the adjustments we need to make. And then the other thing is sometimes when they do adapt those vans, we have Chrysler vans, mostly Dodge vans. They don't seem to last quite as long if you've ever had one. They fall apart a little bit. So 100,000 miles doesn't sound like a lot, but we take a lot of short trips. We don't have a garage, so they do tend not to last quite as long as some vehicles.
Thank you, because at my house, a 100,000-mile vehicle is young. I think our record is over 300,000, and I think we got close to 400,000. But anyway, I would appreciate it if you could, it sounds like the gutter is your #1 issue with your roof right now. If you could think about the roof in a phased approach, and if we replaced the gutters now, what would that cost to be? And because it sounds like you don't have an active leak on the roof, but the plastic pieces for controlling the snow damming are your big issue with the roof right now, and lifespan with the roof. Am I looking at it correctly?
When you say active leak, I'm not aware that we're putting any buckets down, right, permanently. We've been able to patch what does leak. It does leak, and then it gets patched. But the repairman will come around and say there's only so much we can do, or the repair fails. They're trying to use the materials that will last, but at some, periodically it will fail again, and we're back to right where we were. So I can't. I would have to ask my building director, my facilities person, to say, okay, what other options do we have between replacement and what we're doing? I don't know the answer to that.
Thank you. I would appreciate follow-up.
We are running short on time I know we've got some other things to do this evening, but I missed it at the beginning, but I'll close with this and give her kind of some final question. But I wanted to congratulate Representative Brantley on, she is our vice chair for the year. And so welcome, thank you, and we'll give you the final question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just want to say, even last year when you came, you were so humble and just finding other ways to fund your needs, and I really appreciate that. I guess last year, I believe you had a budget person that came with you. Am I correct?
Chair, I don't remember. It's possible that I don't think I've ever brought a budget person with me. I know the KLRD represents us, and we've had some students here. We hope to have some here Thursday, but I don't remember. I'm sorry.
Thank you. I was just wanting some clarification on some of the building projects. So I have one final question. In comparison to Olathe's base salary, how does your base salary compare?
Again, this is, we follow the law, which says we use the 233 salary from the previous year. So it's pretty much analogous. The difference is that we have different days, so it's not a perfect comparison. But again, we've been pleased. I don't remember who the representative or senator was years ago that proposed that. Thank goodness he or she did that. It's really helped us stay competitive. As you know, if we didn't have that, it would be much harder to hire those quality teachers that we need. But again, we don't have a bargaining unit. We're not asking for more days, but if the legislature decides to do that, then we would respect that, and it would be much easier for us next year, 2026-27 school year, rather than this year. I don't know if that answers your question, but.
Superintendent Harding, thank you very much for your testimony. I'm going to invite up Gabby Hull from KSDE for her part of the presentation.
I will be very brief. My name is Gabrielle Hull, and I'm the legislative coordinator for KSDE. I am filling in for the state board today because they had their meeting and couldn't be here. But they did submit written testimony. You have a copy of that, so I won't read it. But really, the state board wanted to commend Superintendent Harding's leadership in submitting a budget that prioritizes student success, and wanted to provide their support for his enhancement requests. You've heard a lot about that directly from him. And then support the retention of the items that Jenny outlined as other enhancements, including that USD 233 pay parity portion of their budget, as well as ensuring students have a safe and accessible transportation. And I'd be happy to answer any questions or take questions back to the state board.
Representative Estes.
Does either of the schools have to come to the state board if they wanted to negotiate a contract that was higher than the 233?
So the State Board of Education does serve as both of the schools' school board. So my understanding is they would need to bring that contractual agreement to the state board. The state board does approve their contract each year, of course, pending funding from the legislature.
And does the state board believe that they are limited to the previous year's amount, the not less? Do they look at it as not less than and they could go above if they wanted to, or do they look at it as that's the maximum?
So I won't speak on behalf of the state board's understanding, but I think our reading of the statute is that it's clearly a minimum requirement.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you. Sorry it took us so long to get to you, but we had some great testimony from Superintendent Harding. I missed it at the beginning as well, but I'll do it right now because we're not too far over, but request for bill introductions. And I'll do it tomorrow too if you're not ready today, but request for bill introductions. Anybody today? All right, well, we are headed off to the state of the state, and thank you, committee. We are adjourned.